All right, brother, here we go. 2 questions today.
Two.
Two
That's
from the community.
I like it. I think we can handle it. Yeah, two's a good number.
And I've already lost it. Which one did you say you want to start with?
What is an athlete?
Okay, gotcha. All right, so here, okay. So I'll read that question here. So this is from Greg S. Pat and Boz, love the show. Keep it up. Basic question, what is an athlete? When I first started CrossFit about 3 years ago, it took me a while to get over the idea of being called an athlete. I was neither a professional nor a competitor on any elite level. I do my best to work out hard 3 to 5 days a week, life permitting, and I do take my fitness goals seriously. However, my definition of an athlete involves some mythic, unobtainable level of performance that I considered impossible for myself. And articles have been written about our CrossFitters athletes, things of that nature. I now embrace the title of athlete based upon the idea of striving for continual excellence, an intentional goal, directed improvement, etc., etc. Curious to know the history and philosophy behind CrossFit deciding to call its participants athletes, and what is your own definition of an athlete, and any idea why society has attached so much baggage to this title. So, CrossFitters, athletes, where did that come from? What's your take on what an athlete is and all that good stuff?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. And so maybe we can start with the historical perspective from us serving as de facto oracles for all things CrossFit, because right. we're barnacles at this point. But, I can't speak entirely as to what was in Greg Glassman's head when he started going down this road, but I can speculate a little bit. And I would say that in the late 90s and the early 2000s, when the philosophy of CrossFit was really starting to become a little bit more solidified, and Greg's thinking was a little bit more established and written, it was still very much a fringe thing to train in a way that wasn't aesthetically based, and to train in a way that wasn't really rooted in bodybuilding and isolation style training programs.
Function over form.
Right. Or to pursue skill as part of a strength and conditioning element. I think many strength and conditioning programs up until that point, again, they had their roots in bodybuilding in a lot of ways. And so there was very little in the way of actually trying to put forward new challenges as far as movement patterns, or learning different types of movements, experimenting with different modalities outside of, just weightlifting in the bodybuilding sense. Mm-hmm. Those were all seen as kind of a waste of time unless you were an athlete, quote unquote. And so it's like, well, there it is right there. If I want my body to function optimally in a variety of different situations, or at least be prepared for a variety of situations, that's the answer. Okay, well, I guess I'm an athlete then. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's synonymous with a champion. And it sounds like that's where the baggage starts to come in a little bit. But somebody who is willing to go down that path, try some different things, experiment with new skills, all in the pursuit of performance, I think it fits the bill pretty nicely. And I would speculate that was what Greg was driving at with using that term more regularly.
Yeah, that would make sense. And again, I can't speak for him as well, but I think the skills aspect that you mentioned, that's a huge part of it. I mean, compared to what I grew up doing, I think a lot of people did single joint isolation, bodybuilding style movements. If I saw somebody in the gym back then doing ring muscle ups or walking on their hands, and then like going out to the track and doing like serious sprints, like not going for a casual jog to quote unquote get your cardio in and burn some fat, but like doing 200-meter repeats, I'd be like, what is this guy all about? This is not normal training. This guy must be some sort of an athlete doing all these weird things. I think those level of skill and the level of intensity of the training as well kind of immediately back then would have leapt into my mind as that's something that athletes do. I'm just doing some normal training over here. Now, in 2023, those days have gone by, and it's just super normal to see people working hard, aka intensity, to see these non-machine based movements. You're doing box jumps and burpees, and you're sprinting, you're doing double lunges, you're climbing ropes, you're doing all this stuff that 20 years ago you would have been the crazy person in the gym by far. And now it's mainstream that it's part of like marketing on YouTube ads and TV like that. If they have to show somebody working out because they're trying to sell you a shoe or a tank top or whatever, somebody's swinging a kettlebell and jumping on a box. Like now it's mainstream culture. And so maybe since it's now mainstream, maybe that's what people think is now normal, and the athletes must be doing the other crazy stuff. It's like, no, you're doing things that are tried and true athletic endeavors right there. I will say, and this is nothing against Greg for submitting the question, because I hear this all the time. It doesn't bother me that much. Like, I don't care particularly one way or another if somebody chooses to say CrossFitters are or are not athletes. You know, that's a discussion that I don't think you're ever going to find a perfect definition for. It's like, well, who's an athlete, who's not an athlete? Is a CrossFitter an athlete? Is a soccer player an athlete? If you're just a runner, is that an athlete? Does it have to be a ball sport? Does it have to have contact involved with it? If you're just a swimmer, is a golfer an athlete? What if you're into billiards, a professional billiards player? Are you an athlete? There's coordination involved there, and there's a level of skill. Darts, I mean, like, you know, you can go down this sort of like, this is a discussion that could go round and round and round and round. So, but for me, yes, CrossFitters are athletes based upon what we just said right there. And I looked up the definition today to say, you know, what's old Merriam-Webster have to say? And the definition is of an athlete: a person who is trained or skilled in exercises, sports, or games requiring physical strength, agility, or stamina. Exercises, sports, or games. Well, we're exercising, that's for darn sure. And there's a sports side, but even if you don't participate in the sports side, the exercises require physical strength, agility, and stamina. I would have to say, in my humble opinion, that if you're involved in CrossFit, you're an athlete.
Yeah, and I agree in the sense that I don't really care what terminology people use, but I do like the trajectory of Greg's question where he started off and he's kind of like, okay, I'm a new CrossFitter. I'm not particularly what I would define in my head as an athlete. You know, I'm just doing this because I know it's good for me and I'm serious about it, but I'm not a competitively minded person. And over some time, he starts to recognize that, oh, okay, there are certain attributes that do reflect an athlete, even if it doesn't mean that I'm a world beater, even if it doesn't mean that I'm engaging in competition in a conventional sense regularly, there is some merit to that. And so I think that's kind of where most people arrive, given a long enough time frame. And I find it a little bit distasteful when people have a real strong opinion one way or the other. If they're absolutely like, wow, CrossFitters aren't athletes. I'm like, okay, that's a weird hill to die on, in my opinion. Right. And it's also a weird hill to die on to just be so vehemently, pro CrossFitters being called athletes either. I kind of don't care in that sense. But
people will get fired up also about, and I haven't done my research on this, but not only that topic, but like the difference between you're just working out, you're not training. And that's, CrossFitters aren't athletes because athletes train for an event. You're just working out in your garage. And so don't confuse yourself with an athlete. If you encounter that, you have encountered such a sad human being that has decided to make that so important to them that at least know that now you can put them on the weird person list and conduct your life with other people. That'd be my opinion on that.
Yeah, it's a pretty rigid mindset, especially when you consider like, okay, yeah, there's certain skills that I want to be able to master. For example, I don't have a muscle up. I'd love to be able to do that. For whatever reason that's important to you, if you are training for that goal and it takes you a while to get there, it seems like that's a pretty clear indicator of one of those things being true. And particularly if you stretch that out along a long enough time frame, you have somebody who's in it 5 years, 10 years, and maybe their focus shifts every once in a while, periodically with their interest, and maybe they're looking at a little bit more weightlifting for a year or two, and then they decide that running is where they want to focus their interest a little bit more, all within the realm of a general program. I don't think that should be discounted just because there's a breadth to it. It's a little strange. So Anyway, yeah, that's a good tangent. I agree. I think that's a funny thing to get too hung up on. But to get back to Greg's question about athlete and my personal opinion about it, again, what people choose to label themselves as, I don't really care. But I think an athlete, in my opinion, is somebody who does pursue challenge on a regular basis. They're willing to put themselves out there and recognize that they want to be in a better place or further along the track developmentally in the future than they are right now. So there's an understanding that they are engaging with a physical challenge that progresses. Mm-hmm. Within that, there's a certain level of performance orientation. It doesn't really matter so much what I look like. What matters is what can I do? And that becomes the foundational kind of litmus for whether or not something is a good decision to pursue. Does it allow me to get to that end state better? And you find that a lot of things start to fall in line there. It's like, okay, well, if I really want to be better, chances are I can't be 30 pounds overweight. Mm-hmm. Chances are I can't just discount my diet entirely. Chances are I have to have some sort of stress management to be able to get better in the long run. So this performance-oriented mindset in a healthy way helps to kind of align a North Star for you to make some decisions and filter through. The other thing I had on that was that skill matters. It's important to an athlete to be skilled and to continue to refine skill. Generally speaking, all other factors being equal, if somebody has more skill and they can display that more readily, they're going to have a better outcome. And so skill is something that I think differentiates the average gym rat from somebody who is more athletically inclined. The pursuit of that and the understanding that there are more skills to gain. And then the last one that I've got, so, understanding about challenge, being performance-oriented, pursuing new skills. And then the last one is a healthy pursuit of competition. And usually that's going to be used as a driver for results. And competition doesn't need to look like, well, I sign up for the Open every year and I do these weekend throwdowns. Cool. Hey, man, if that's what gets you motivated, then that kind of provides a structure for you to get your training in. Awesome. That a lot of people love that and they have a great time with that. There's plenty of people that want nothing to do with that. That doesn't mean that they don't reap the benefits of healthy competition. It just needs to be reframed a little bit as you from the past versus you now. What does that look like? And can I continue to try to beat that guy even though he's crafty?
Yes. You versus you.
Yeah, exactly. And so a little bit of healthy competition, I think, is something that is a really good thing for most people in their lives. They need that. I think it provides a tremendous amount of value and direction. Even if you can blow it off and be like, well, it's just what I do in the gym, fine. It's still significant. And so those kind of four things, in my opinion, kind of build the framework of an athlete. So pursuit of challenge, being performance-oriented, developing skill, and then understanding the healthy benefits of competition. And I think CrossFit teaches a lot of those aspects when done well.
I had some competition yesterday. I don't know if I could say that it was healthy. I went head-to-head against my wife in a workout that we had, and I just got decimated, and we get decimated on movements that I actually don't mind, and it's like, I think it's going to be okay. And it wasn't okay. But, competition works, man. I went hard to the paint.
Yeah.
It helps drive some results and some intensity. So it was good.
Well, I'll give you one too that we just did recently. I just got back from a big jag of travel with the semifinals for the CrossFit Games. And, me and some of the other key staff made a bit of a pact that we would work out at the end of the long days to make sure that we got something in. And
good call.
The competition that we built was we had the teams that were out traveling for these events. We separated off into teams of 3. And it was really more of a participatory challenge. The results for each workout didn't matter so much. What did matter was, could you get in something meaningful at the end of these long competition days consistently for 3 weeks? Yeah. And so the winner was the team that had the most consistency over those 3 weeks, not necessarily who had the heaviest hitters. And in that way, it kept us really sane because these are busy weeks. It's easy to blow off your own stuff. Next thing you know, a month has gone by and you haven't worked out at all. And so, it kept us on the straight and narrow, so to speak, a little bit, even if the results from the individual workouts didn't matter so much.
I like that. Consistent. It all comes down to consistency. So making consistency the metric from which you're going to judge success by, that's a pretty darn good metric.
Yeah.
All right. So we're both athletes, and so is Greg. So
yeah, pretty much.
So we've got one other question from the community here, which is a great one that it's been around for a long time.
Sorry, man. I want to go back one more step.
Go.
Yeah, just one more on the athlete thing. Because he did ask, I think at the end of the question, if I'm remembering it.
Baggage.
Yeah, what's the baggage around that? And I think that, it's interesting being lucky enough to travel around the world. And, in North America, particularly the United States, in my humble opinion, athletics gets lumped in with really high level pursuit and execution. So you're an athlete if you play at a D1 school. You're an athlete if you have a pro or a semi-pro career. But what that discounts is all of the hundreds, if not thousands of people that participate in those sports that allow those really high level people to filter to the top. That's not possible without a huge pyramid of people underneath that choose to participate. So what are those people? Nothing. That's a weird way to frame it, that athletes are only the top of the heap. Now, if you go outside the United States, it's been my experience that there's much more depth to kind of amateur sports culture. Like I spent some time in Australia when I was a little younger, and it surprised me the number of people, at least by my observation, that were working professionals, but they played something on an intramural level. They would play pickup rugby on the weekends, or they would go and they had a cricket team that they would be a part of or whatever. And they're just normal people, but they had this hobby that happened to be a sport. And in that context, I think there were many people that were willing to use that term athlete more loosely because it wasn't wrapped up in this professional pursuit of athletics. It didn't have to be tied to a championship, high level, paying the bills, mega millions type of attitude. And that's what I've experienced in many places outside of North America and the United States specifically. So yeah, it is interesting when you kind of take a broader view on that.
So it sounds like outside the U.S., they actually have a work-life balance. And here in the U.S., we work and we have no hobbies. If you're an adult, it's just grind.
I wouldn't say that. I would just say that, maybe the intramural aspect is a little less developed
that's
here,
cool,
whereas
though.
the high end is,
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
More of us would probably benefit from doing something just for fun and realizing it's okay to do it just for fun, not at a crazy high level. And yeah, you're involved in an athletic pursuit and you're good to go.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next question. This is from Derek F. Derek says, being someone who's been doing CrossFit for a number of years, seen a lot of different boxes, I really believe it's for everyone, and the people's needs differ by degree, not kind. I believe in all that. I'm not trying to push CrossFit onto everyone, but I struggle with introducing it to people. Something that I feel is for everyone and is completely accessible can actually be pretty inaccessible. The two main hurdles I see are cost, which can be very hard for some people, and the requirement for the person to take some on-ramp classes. I understand the need for people to be familiar with the barbell movements and the basic mechanics, but it usually requires an upfront investment before they can even be able to experience CrossFit firsthand. I'm wondering if other people see this as an issue and if there are solutions to making CrossFit more accessible to somebody who is brand new. So CrossFit, accessible or inaccessible, and in Derek's view, main hurdles being the cost to go ahead and attend a gym, and then maybe even before you get to do that and reap the rewards of what you're paying each month, you have to take these on-ramp classes. And those might be two hurdles. And what do you see those as? And are they making CrossFit inaccessible for folks?
Yeah. Wow. I mean, again, there's kind of a lot of meat on the bone there, which is good. I would say a couple things right off the cuff. Number one, I think there's many ways to the top of the mountain, so to speak. And, while a good affiliate is likely going to have a way that they can get somebody from 0 to 60, so to speak, that makes sense and integrates them safely with people that are more experienced. There's a lot of ways that happens. It doesn't always mean that you're isolated in an on-ramp type setting, and kind of removed from the main group. There's plenty of ways to approach that. So I think that's interesting, that's seen as a detriment. The second thing I would say is that the most important aspect to pursuing anything, in my opinion, is just the will to do it. And if that's lacking, it doesn't matter if it's inexpensive or accessible, it won't be something that the person will do. And so that to me is the hardest hurdle to overcome. If you can get somebody bought in as far as, hey, this is going to be useful to you, or I think you would enjoy it, or trust me, I'm your friend, or hey, you need a wake-up call on your health and fitness, whatever that is that can get that person in the right mindset, the rest is just application, in my opinion, and it can be overcome. If you don't have somebody that's bought in, or you're having a hard time making that connection, they will always be able to find a reason that it won't work. It will always be too expensive, regardless of cost. It will always be too difficult to learn these movements, regardless of how well they're introduced. That mindset, in my opinion, is the critical factor. You might even say it's the linchpin, Pat.
Like what you did there.
So that's the hard one, I think, to overcome. I would love to dig into some practical solutions, because I think there are many. But I will say it really is kind of cliche, but it's the old lead a horse to water. That's the thing. You can't force them to drink. And that's the hardest thing to overcome. So I'm curious as to your thoughts. And
here's where I go on the first one, the barrier to entry being the cost, being potentially prohibitive and expensive. I've always struggled with this when this comes up, because quite frankly, it's free. It's actually free. So you could do CrossFit for free. So I don't get it at all. It's a really big fitness world out there. And so there's something for everybody. If your budget allows for no expenditure, then you're going to have to exert more effort on your own to do things, to learn things, to figure things out, and to be creative. But you can find a workout to do every day for free. And then you can find videos on YouTube as to how to do those movements for free. So there is literally no barrier to entry regards to cost. But again, it's a big fitness world out there. You want to go all the way to the other extreme and pay to join an affiliate and have a professional experience with a professional coach, instilling their hard-earned knowledge on you in a group setting in a large place that they have to pay the lease on and fill with tens of thousands of dollars of equipment. You're going to pay for that experience. And then there's a whole bunch of, again, it's a big fitness world. Then there's a bunch of people in the middle that will find an online option or anything under the sun. Wherever you are in that spectrum, there's some place for you to find your niche and to do some version of CrossFit that meets your needs, your ability level, and your willingness to fork over a particular amount of money. And so I don't see that at all as a meaningful argument. If you want whatever it is, you can find it. And I think back to when me and all my knucklehead friends started doing CrossFit in 2005, we didn't go to an affiliate. I don't even know if I knew what that term meant. We just watched, we just watched videos online, and with subpar equipment, barbells that weren't really meant to do Olympic lifts with. The collars didn't spin well. They were just my old Joe Weider weight set for doing bench press. And, plates that were not meant to be dropped, and nobody had a set of rings. And we just did stuff that we try to replicate as much as we can. And we little bit by little bit got better, and little bit by little bit figured things out. It cost us $0. That option still exists today for every single human being on the planet. So again, wherever you are in the spectrum, big fitness world, there's a home for you. But you shouldn't expect to receive a professional level of anything without a professional fee being associated with that, whether it's CrossFit, having a heating and air conditioning unit fixed in your home, whatever it is, that makes sense to me, so that one I've always struggled with personally.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, particularly you and I coming from the old school, so to speak. I mean, looking up the workout videos in 2004 when I started was a very different thing. I mean, there was a long time where CrossFit.com had this exercises and demos page, and it was the most comprehensive list of movements on the internet. Definitively, you could not find a bigger collection of weightlifting movements, gymnastics movements, track and field, swimming. It had this collection of stuff that was unparalleled. Now, you can go to any number of websites or just YouTube or Google in general and type in any of these things and come up with hundreds of people that are putting all this stuff out there for free. And you can take your pick. Maybe you don't like learning the power clean from this guy because the colors of his plates are off. Great. You can learn from this guy for free as well. So I agree with you. I think that the number of resource that's available to people for nothing right now is unprecedented. So I don't buy that either, that it's, cost prohibitive. Maybe it's cost prohibitive to start an affiliate right away, sure, but there's a million different ways that you can slice that to get around that. So a couple of practical ideas. Number one, start at the main site and do your best to just try to amend those to the equipment you have or body weight versions of them. And the CrossFit.com right now, they offer different scaling options for every single workout of the day. So regardless of your level, you can jump on there and you can dive in at your level that you're at. So that's an easy one to get your feet wet. The second is, I think most people have this all or nothing approach to affiliates, where they think, okay, I need to buy a membership where I'm going every single day or I don't get one at all. Well, what about a hybrid where you talk to that affiliate owner and you say, hey, look, my financial situation doesn't allow me to train here at a full membership, but I'd really like to have a touchstone with this affiliate. Can I come in and drop in once every week or once every other week? Pay the drop-in fee, come and get some coaching, and then maybe your financial situation changes a little bit or you prioritize it differently in the future and you decide to get a more extended membership. But you can kind of have that touchstone with that coach, with that community once in a while, and then do your best on your own to continue to develop. You might develop a little bit more slowly without that constant coaching, but so what? You got the rest of your life. No big deal. And then the third, which is one that I think was kind of one of the benefits of the COVID era, is that you would see people kind of have these de facto little collectives pop up that were fitness oriented. It's like, okay, I've got some garage space. Maybe you have an old kettlebell. You've got a couple of jump ropes. Let's all get together on Wednesday morning and figure out what we can do together. And then maybe we can pool our money and, next month we get a dumbbell. Cool. And then a couple months later, we pool our money and we get a barbell. Cool. And over time, we have this nice little gym that we've built with the bare minimum, and we can kind of keep an eye on each other. We can learn as we go. It doesn't take a ton of money to get the thing going up front. And we get that same kind of benefit of motivation from other people, a little bit of peer pressure in the right way to keep you on track, all of those types of things. So right off the bat, those are kind of three of my strategies to get around the it's too expensive argument. Jump on the main site, do what you can for free, talk to an affiliate, see if you can drop in once in a while for that touchstone, or see if you can get together with some other like-minded people, find them, figure that out, pool your resources, and start a little fitness collective. So those are kind of three strategies that I would recommend to people if they're not quite ready or not quite able to jump in full cost.
Yep. And depending upon the amount of money you outlay will probably be directly related to the effort level on your part. If you don't want to outlay any money, it's a lot more work on your end, a lot more research on your end, a lot more everything on your end to make it happen. Or you can walk into the facility, pay somebody a larger sum of money, and they got it all figured out for you. So it's just, and like I said, and there's a bunch of options in the middle. So I do think, hey, whatever fits for you. And, you might have champagne taste and a beer budget. And if that's where you're at, you might want to go to the fanciest, biggest, whatever that's amazing, but it's cost prohibitive. That sucks, but if that's factually what it is, then you either figure out a way to eventually get there, or you're going to have to choose an alternative to that, if your primary focus is still improving your health and fitness, I am hopeful and optimistic that you will find a way. Let me go ahead and say that. And then the second part being the other potential hurdle that maybe hurts accessibility would be the necessity of an on-ramp class as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I just want to go back and talk a little bit about what you said there about, I like that line about champagne taste and a beer budget. Yes, that happens, I think, to a lot of us at different stages of our lives. With something like CrossFit, it's a great reminder when you find yourself in that situation that you can't let perfect be the enemy of progress. And just because I can't afford the best gym in town's $300 a month premium membership doesn't mean the only option available to me is say, well, I don't know what to do. That, I think, is the biggest problem. If your attitude is like, well, I can't buy the premium service, therefore it's nothing for me, that's a problem. I guess it's to extend the metaphor, it's like, hey man, I would prefer the champagne, but I can be happy with the beer.
Right.
At least for now.
Right.
And then over time, maybe I can work my way into that champagne or whatever. But I think that's one of those things that people convince themselves of pretty regularly is, okay, I can't do this exactly the way that I had hoped for or thought about it in my mind. Therefore, I'm not going to do it at all. And like I said earlier, hey, you've got all the time in the world. You've got for the rest of your life. So don't rush. There's no need to be at this certain level by any certain time. What is important is that you're putting one foot in front of the other and getting on that track.
And not to extend this point as well, but if we're going like into the way back machine of CrossFit and its roots or whatnot, and original journal articles and all that, the affiliate system came around later. It was initially a small amount of equipment in your humble garage, and with some knowledge and time spent reading some things, you will become a fitness animal. And nothing about that has changed today. There's a lot more really big, whiz-bang, awesome gyms out there, which is a good thing. But nothing about that original path has changed. If that's still the path that makes sense for you for any number of reasons, be it financially or you just prefer working out in your garage, that path is there and it's a great path. And so I just throw that out there too.
Yeah, absolutely. I love going back and thinking about that history a little bit because it really was a response to kind of the bloat of the fitness industry. It was a rejection of like, you know what, you don't need all this stuff to get really fit and really awesome. In fact, you really just need a bare minimum of stuff, and you got to apply yourself to it really, with a lot of enthusiasm. That's the defining factor right there. So yeah, like you said, that none of that's changed. There's just a lot more like-minded people that have chosen to build these facilities so that it's a little easier. People don't have to have them on their own independently. They can go collect at these facilities that have done it for them. But man, nothing's stopping you from following that original path. So yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, man.
But what about these darn on-ramp classes?
Oh, the on-ramp classes. Yeah. Yeah. What about them? Again, I think that there's a lot of different models there. And so depending on where you live, I think one of the things to do would be to shop around a little bit at different affiliates. If you happen to live in a major metro area or even a moderately sized city these days, there's probably a handful of CrossFit gyms within striking distance of you. And they're all going to approach their on-ramp a little bit differently. And so finding one that kind of fits with you, not only your experience, but just kind of your, your taste is worth the time. It's worth trying to find that before you start really putting a lot of eggs in that basket. So that'd be one thing I would say is, hey, you don't like the on-ramp program, you think it's a little bit too much, go somewhere else and see what their approach is, because it might surprise you how varied they are.
I would say, I think some gyms also give you the opportunity to potentially test out of the on-ramp.
Absolutely,
if you think that you've been doing this for a while, I think I'm proficient, I'm not an expert, but I'm perfectly safe and I can respond to cues. I should be able to join classes. I don't need this however many week on-ramp. They'd be like, okay, you don't have to attend the 4, 6, 8 week on-ramp, but you have to come in for a 1 hour assessment. And if you get the green light, welcome to the class.
Yeah. A lot of places are pretty reasonable about that. Absolutely. In a lot of places, their on-ramp, quote unquote, is they have kind of multiple coaches on the floor at once. I've seen this pretty regularly. And okay, you're a beginner, you jump right in with everybody else. You just happen to have a little bit more attention from that secondary coach. That's more and more common these days. And again, I think that you can, with the will to do it, that's the critical factor there. You can come to the table with a lot of those skills, like you said. Do your best to try to develop them on your own. They might not be perfectly refined. They might not be perfectly polished. But if you can come in and show that you actually have a little bit of understanding of the terminology, you can differentiate between the movements, even if you're not top dog at execution or the weight that you're putting up isn't impressive. The point is that you understand how to approach them. That's what's important. So a lot of that self-learning can be done before you go to the affiliate.
And I think to give the most charitable and positive view of an on-ramp course is that a lot of them came about through a need, through a necessity, right? So we're not just sitting on a machine pushing a selectorized arm through a range of motion that's predetermined. Like, you're doing movements that require coordination, accuracy, agility, and balance. And by their very definition, they have to be learned and taught and practiced to get any degree of competency that you would want to then expose somebody to any meaningful degree of intensity or loading in a class setting. And so if somebody hasn't had exposure to squat, dead, press, jerk, I mean, hang, power, clean, like you name it, and now they joined the 5 p.m. class that's got a trainer in there and there's 12 people, and now Johnny's brand new, that trainer might be like, holy cow, this person doesn't know anything. I now, for the next hour, have to utterly and completely ignore these 11 people that are paying for my services because this one person requires all of my attention. Well, that's not fair to those other 11. And so there probably was a problem that was identified, and then a solution was developed for that, so that when you do meet the class as a new individual, while you're not expert ninja level status, you are competent, you understand the lingo, you can respond to cues, and you are not taking up, the overwhelming majority of the trainer's time and attention so that everybody else is being neglected. You will probably need a bit more, but it's in a measure of their attention that's okay, and no one's upset about that. So I think that's probably, why an on-ramp course came around, serves a good function. But again, if you get the skill set and you can test out of it, always a good option.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the one thing I'll say about that too, and it kind of, I don't know, I guess expands on what you just said and what I said before, but, I think the real big factor that people want to see out of their on-ramp athletes is that they understand how to keep themselves safe to a certain degree. I think that's just the number one element is, okay, is this person going to make good decisions when it comes time to load their bar, decide if it's a scale day or not? Are they going to get caught in the trap of pushing themselves too fast, too soon? Those types of things I think are more important lessons than any specific technique that comes out of the on-ramp. It's just an understanding of what you're dealing with and what the trajectory looks like in a realistic sense. And so if you can display that, I think that's going to be a pretty big foot in the door.
Yeah, agreed. And a fun story that this same theme carries on through everything. There's a CrossFit workout that's very sneaky because it doesn't look that bad, but it is. It's called SQT, which is just
it's a good one.
200-meter shuttle runs, 50 out, 50 back, 50 out, 50 back, and then a 95 or 65-pound barbell with 10 ground overhead. 3 rounds of that. 200-meter shuttle run, 10 ground overhead, or it might start with a ground overhead. Irrelevant. But it's a lightweight. It's a short workout. It doesn't look like it should sting that bad, but it does. But SQT stands for SEAL Qualification Training. And so I would kind of consider that an on-ramp course for Navy SEALs, because you go through BUDS and then you just don't go to a SEAL team. That'd be like joining a class. Like, I want to put me in the 5 p.m. class. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what a power clean is. You're a total knucklehead. You can't join the 5 p.m. class. What are you talking about? We're doing complicated things here. You can't do that. It's the same thing even like in the military. Like, for young SEALs, before they join their SEAL team, they have to go to this on-ramp, if you will, which is SEAL Qualification Training, a few months long. And you're not a master of anything when you finish that. But what you are is you are competent enough, safe enough. You've shown that you're trainable. You have a basic understanding of the path that we're going to go down, and you can join these more experienced people who can take you under your wing and guide them, and you'll know what the heck you're doing. And you won't slow them down so much that you're holding back their training. And it's just necessary. And it's probably necessary in a whole lot of things. Like you have to be a journeyman before you become an electrician. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff out there. And the Onramp course probably serves that function in the CrossFit gym.
Yeah, I like that statement, shown that you are trainable. That's such a big one. I mean, like that's really it, right? Are you going to be willing to take direction when it's time to take direction? When you're not in the place where you're going to be receiving direct instruction, can you make decent decisions with the knowledge you have? I mean, like, can you take direction is such a big one. That's, man, great stuff, Pat.
So that's it. So Derek, I enjoyed the question, and I was having a little fun with it. So hopefully, it's all in good fun there. But that's my honest opinion for you, Derek, on all those things right there. And I hopefully that added some sort of value or information for you if you're having these discussions with other people about potential barriers of entry, and are they as big as some people think they are, or are there ways to overcome them? So hopefully that's that. Anything else on your end that we haven't touched?
No, I don't think so. I think that was good.
Yeah, what's funny is I thought this was going to be a quick one.
It's always the case, right? Oh yeah, that one. We should probably get to 2 questions because
exactly.
We'll wrap it up quickly. Yeah,
that was my fault. Well, hey, what's funny is and this hooked me up to a polygraph. This wasn't planned, but we've got on-ramps for people who need them. At the end of all these shows, I always mention the Varied Not Random cycles, which has get your first pull-up, first 5 feet of handstand walk and all that good stuff. But there is a dumbbell on-ramp course. There is a body weight on-ramp course for people who want to learn those movements. And we created a barbell on-ramp course that is not launched yet, but I was actually just talking to the individual who is setting it up, and that should be launched in the near future. So body weight, dumbbell, and barbell. So check those out. They're in the show notes. We're proud of them. Hopefully they serve you well. And please keep the questions coming. This is the good stuff. I love hearing the questions from the community, from VNR watchers and listeners. What's on all of your mind? Post down here in the comments. What do you think? What's an athlete? Who's not an athlete? What are the barriers of entry? Is it cost? Is it on-ramp? What's your personal experience? Get an idea for an upcoming show. Post it there as well. We'll check them out. So as always, for Adrian Bosman, I'm Pat Sherwood, and we will see you next time.